Are there any further speakers? The Honourable Scott Farlow in reply.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy President, and I'd like to thank all honourable members for their contribution, noting the contributions of the Honourable Reverend Fred Nile, the Honourable Dr Peter Phelps, the Honourable Sophie Kotsis, the Honourable Courtney Husos, the Honourable Shane Mallard, the Honourable Natasha McLaren-Jones and the Honourable Paul Green. And I'd like to thank particularly all of those who outside of this House have been interested and involved in this motion. And I was actually quite surprised by some of the responses I got back through social media and some of the people sharing their stories about Lemnos and their family stories when it came to Lemnos. One particular response came from a woman by the name of Debbie Papadakis. And Debbie was born in Balmain and grew up in Clovelly and lived in Forestville for many years, but she now lives in Greece and had taken some interest in this motion when she saw it come up on her social media feed. And she states that she can truly relate to the legacy of highlighting the bond that we share and the values that we hold between both Australia and Greece, particularly of somebody who is from Australia, of Greek heritage, and now lives in Greece. And she's also made some contributions in regards to Lemnos and the Anzac service through poetry. And these poems she's shared with the Australian ambassador in Greece, and particularly at a ceremony that was held in Athens on the 27th of June this year. And I will actually read into Hansard one of those poems that she has shared with me through social media, through the debate in this House. And I think that's a great way. Sometimes we can sit here where we've got a gallery of one person, and I thank him for his presence here today, and think that we are working in a vacuum. But there are people outside who are watching, and I'd like to share Debbie's poem, The AA to Australia's Pride in 1915. Indeed, they will be remembered for their leadership at the Great War, when the navy of a new nation loyally pledged its support. At a moment in time then, when the mother country sounded those bells, they chimed in time to the beat of the war drum, beat, beat, beating off to the Dardanelles. The AE2 followed, a new Australian submarine that captured a moment of naval victory. On the 25th of April 1915, it sailed through the Dardanelles, the strait lined with mines, a suicide mission one could tell, reaching Constantinople, was its original goal that time, opening the gateway for the Russian fleet and for the Anzac diggers to storm the peninsula as an element of surprise. The enemy's jaw dropped at the sight of the AE2 gliding in the darkness of the night. But they were alone there, no backup was able to be received, and like a warrior she was struck and left for dead indeed. The crew were saved and taken as POW, while the captain led her mission assigned to our submarine, and she is remembered today to be the AE2 of Australia's loyal navy, venturing at the Dardanelles near Constantinople. And I'd like to thank Debbie for sharing that with us and for her wonderful poetry, and unfortunately time doesn't permit me to read some of her other poems, but I'd also like to thank some of those who reached out to me, in particular Owen Laffin, who had both great-grandparents who served in Lemnos during the Great War. His great-grandmother was an AIF nurse based at Lemnos, and his great-grandfather was an AIF medic who was based in Lemnos prior to being sent to the Western Front. And through this debate, it's also made me reflect on my own family's military history and what may have been. I had a great-grandfather, Rupert Stanley Reeves, who went to serve in First World War, but was actually run over by a truck on his way to serve on the Western Front, and what may have been, and did not seek overseas service after that. So we all, I think, have stories in this House, and we've seen from the contribution, particularly of some of our members of Greek heritage in this place as well, the contribution and the lineage that we all share when it comes to the Great War and the service of the Anzacs in Lemnos and through other theatres of war during the Great War. And I thank all honourable members for their contribution to this debate and commend the motion to the House.